Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll be showing you how to work with this view in QML. So let's get started. I've initially made a default window application. So let's run the application once. I've just increased the width and the height so it's visible. First, let's give it some background. So I'll select a rectangle and I'll fill the whole window and I'll set the color of the rectangle to be 333. It's slightly grayish and let's see. I hope you remember how anchors.fills work, right? Now, let's get started. First, let me discuss the concept behind a list view, right? So, basically, what is a list? A list is a group of items with like with similar properties. For example, let's say I have a list of items to fetch from grocery store. Let's say eggs, breads, and let's say milk, right? So it's a list of items. Similarly, it can be a list of let's say students, right? So for example, roll number one, his name is ABC, his age is 30. Roll number two, his name is XYZ, age is 50. Roll number three, name is PQR, and age is 20, right? So this is basically a list, like a collection of elements. They can be similar, they can be different, right? But it's basically a collection of elements. Now in QML, we have three things. We have list, and inside a list, we have three things, which is view, model, and delegate. So one thing is called view, the other is called model, MODEL model, and the third is called delegate. Now let's examine all these three things, right? So what is a view? View is basically a page, the area where you want to display the list. It's basically a page. For example, let's say this is the view of this drawing board, right? So for example, if I have let me go down. If I have a list of elements, let's say 1 ABC, 2 PQR, 3 something, 4 something, 5 something, and the list goes on, right? 6 something, 7 something, 8, let's say dog, 7, let's say cat, right? Now, as you can see, at a time, I can only display 5 things, and I have to scroll down to see all the other elements of the list. So basically, this is my view, the visible area. And if I scroll down, I'll see the other elements of the list, six, seven, eight, right? So that is basically a view. You can think of it as a rectangle where the list will be displayed. And if you want to see the all the elements of the list, you have to scroll, right? So this is basically a view. Now, what is a model? This is basically the data, like what should be shown inside the list, like what should we display in the list. Let's say we want to display cities. Let's say Cali, California is not a city. Let's say London, Paris, Delhi, Berlin, right? All the list of strings, or let's say list of integers like 1, 15, 20, 35, and so on, right? So this is basically a model, the data. Like this is the data part. Uh, yeah, this is the data part. It may be a list of numbers. It may be a list of strings, let's say egg, milk, right? It could be even more complex things. For example, let's say we have two things, name and age. So for all the elements, there will be two things. One is name and one is age for a list of students, right? So this is basically the model part, the data part. This is the view, how the where the entire list will be displayed, uh, like the rectangle, like it will be a component where the entire list is displayed. Now, what is a delegate? Delegate is like where how each item will be displayed. Like if you want to like display each item as an icon and the text, or if you want to display each item vertically, let's say this is the icon and this is the text. So how each item will be displayed is defined by a delegate. For example, let's say we can have a button, and inside the button we have the text, right? So this is a delegate. We can have a rectangle with color blue, and inside that there is a text, right? So this is delegate. How each item will be displayed, and all the items, like all the delegates, will be inside this view, and the data will come from the model. So I hope this is clear. View is the entire page, delegate is how each item will be like displayed, and model is the data which will be filled. So with that, let's see how it works. So let's define the list view, right? So I'll say list view. This is the entire width and height where the list will be displayed. So let's give it a width of, let's say, 100, and let's give it a height of, let's say, 100, and let's give the items some spacing of, let's say, 10. So each item is a bit spaced out from each other, like the list is a bit spaced out. Now, as you can see, we have two things. One is a model and the other is a delegate, right? Model is the data part. So right now, let's give the model an array of integers, right? Six, yeah, perfect. Now, this is the model, an array of numbers. Now, what is a delegate? How each item will be displayed. So, you have to provide a component here, right? So, for now, I'll provide a text and, or let's say label. And, okay, for label, you have to import keyword quick controls. So, let's do that. Yes. And the text inside that label will be different, right? The text will be different. Like for this, the text will be one. For this, the text will be two. For this, the text will be five. For this, the text will be six, and so on, right? So how can we like decide what the text should be? So by default, the model provides us with a variable called model data, where the D is capital, right? This is provided to us. This is automatically provided to us by the model, right? So we can like display this. Uh, if I write something like the number is and give the plus, yes, perfect. So right now you will see a warning like unqualified access. I'll show you how to fix that. But this is provided. Don't worry, like you won't see any variable, but this model data is provided by the model. Sorry for the background noise. Yeah, let's run the application once. Okay, the list is there. I have to change the text color and the font size. I'll set the color to white so it's visible, and I'll change the font size. Let's say 14, and I'll center it in the parent so it's at the center so it's visible. Yes. Now I think the list will be visible to you, right? Let's see. Yes. See, by default, the list view does not have any background, right? But if you scroll, you'll see it has a fixed width and height, right? If you see, we are scrolling down the list, and as you can see, all the numbers are displayed properly, right? So if you change this thing, like if you say 35 or 39, so the data will change, right? Let's see. Also, let's try to remove this warning here, right? So yeah, if you see the list is updated. So to remove this warning, what you can do is just say required property and give it a data type. Uh, as you can clearly see, this is a int integer data type. So I'll say int. If you don't know the data type, you can use var, which is stands for variable. But let's be specific. We'll say int and model data. Now, let's see what I exactly did here, right? So if you can see, I said required property. Required means you have to provide it. If you don't, it will throw a compilation error and the application will quit, right? So this is needed. It's important to provide it. And who is providing it? The model data. So we don't have to worry. This thing is already provided. This model is already providing this variable to us. So that's why it works correctly, right? And since we have defined it, we are not getting the error, and let's run it once and see if it works. Yes. So as you can see, the resume works. Now, instead of a number, let's try to give it a string, right? Let's try to change the data. I'll say ABC, some different string, right? Like let's give it some random values and yes. Now, be careful since the model data is no more an integer, right? It's a string. If you see, this is a string. This is not an integer, so change it, right? Be careful with that. Or you can simply use VAR. So it will, but that is not like a good practice. So it's frowned upon. Yeah. So I provided the data type model data, right? Now, I hope this is clear. Instead of this, you can also, if you need a continuous like range of numbers, let's say you want to print from 0 to 10, 0 to 9. So you can provide the model as 10. I think hopefully it will be from 0 to 9 or from 1 to, yeah, it's from 0 to 9. Because array index starts from 0, right? So it's from 0 to 9. So this also works. Here, the starting will be from 0 and the last number will be this minus 1. So 10 minus 1 is 9. So 9 is the last number, right? So this is basically that. Yeah, but I think this is this static model. Now let's see how we can integrate list model here, right? So now I'll show you what a list model is. This is basically the data part. So let's give it some ID and call it my model, and let's replace this part, right? It's a good practice to keep the model above the list view so that the data is clearly visible if you scroll up, and the delegate below the list view so you can see how each item will be displayed, right? It's a good practice, right? So now let's fill the model with some data. So each item will be called list element. So if you have five items, just copy this list element five times, right? So have five list elements, right? So inside it, let's try to uh, tweak it with some value. Let's see. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's make the list uh, a list of students. So each student has a name, let's say ABC, and an age, let's say 20. Now we'll copy this and fill it with different random data. Instead of ABC, let's give some other thing and change the age. I don't think anyone will live that long. And let's see the string. Okay, this is basically manual labor, but yeah, yeah. I don't think any student is that young. Yep. So basically, each item has two things, name and age. So this model data will change. And what will we change it with? If you guessed it correctly, we'll have two things. One is a name, and one property is a age. Required property, int age. Because this age is a number, so I've set it as integer. And I'll say the name is name and age is age. Now, I want you to think why we added two properties, because each element has two things, a name and an age, right? That's why we have set it as name and age. We can also do something like this, model data dot age, but we don't need to do that because we can directly access these two properties in hash map. These are called keys and these are called values. If you have learned C++ and Java, you know this is a key, this is a value, right? So these are the keys we are getting by default for each element. If we had a third thing, like let's say uh, phone number, and that would be a string or something, right? Or an integer. So we could also add a property called phone number, right? So that's basically that. Okay, my bad. Age 60. Let's run the application once and see if it works correctly. We have given it an ID and we have set the model to that. Okay, the alignment is a bit like off. We'll work with that. Don't worry. We'll fix that. Right now, let's work with the basic data modeling, right? So for now, we have manually set all the data, right? But in the future, we might be using this for fetching weather data, right? We can call a weather API and get the weather details like the temperature, minimum temperature, maximum temperature, humidity, probability of raining. So all the data will be provided by our C++ class. I will show how to send data from C++ to QML, but the logic is the same. You have a bit of properties, and this delegate will get all the property provided by the list model, so we'll get all the properties and we can display them. Now let's work with delegate, right? So one way is to define the delegate directly like this. The other is to create a separate component and then to give the ID of that component. So you'll see me using a component here, right? And let's give it an ID of my delegate. And here, let's cut this and paste here. And simply set the delegate of the list view to this one. Yes. Now you might be thinking, why did I add a new variable called new component container? So this is needed to optimize the list view. Uh, See, at a time only three items are visible, right? And when we scroll up and okay, just a minute. I think my scrolling is not working correctly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. At a time, only three items are visible, right? Uh, so if you scroll up and scroll down, you can see the other items, but the previous items are now gone from the visible area. So what am I saying? Let's see. Let's say we have 100 items in our list, right? And only three are visible here. So the rest of the 97 items do not need to occupy the memory, right? Just release them from the memory, free the memory, so the application size is very less. If you keep them in the memory, the application size will increase exponentially, and they are not even needed. Like when you scroll down, let's say we scroll down to 50, 51, 52, then delete this previous thing, delete the previous three, and keep this, right? So to optimize the memory, we use a component. It optimizes them. Whichever item is not visible, it will clear the memory. So you are optimizing the code. So that's why we use a component, and that is basically list view, and delegate, right? So I'll like show more details on how to work with a different type of list view, how to sort them, how to connect from C++ to like QML in a later video. But thank you for watching and have a nice day.